You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. Your love changes everything. There's something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes every. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dance. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love, something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into
Good morning, Rooted Men. Matt Ryan, elder from the Rooted Ministries. Pleasure to be with you on this Friday morning. Um, Repping some Texas gear today. Excited for the March Madness tournament getting rolling. Of course, this first weekend is always the most fun weekend of it. So maybe some of that's in store for you this weekend. I don't know. A lot of us are traveling. I know I'm heading down to North Carolina for a week. Enjoy some time off for spring break. So whatever it is that you've got going on, whatever it is that you've got looking forward to, I'm glad that you joined us this morning to kind of get your Friday kicked off in a good direction, to dig into the Word and join some of your fellow brothers in arms here. And boy, aren't we lucky to have this? I know we could think of probably hundreds of people could be joining this every morning and starting their day this way, but it starts with us. We're glad to be here, glad to be digging in with you. So we're continuing our study of the book of Mark as Jesus marches toward Good Friday. We march on toward Good Friday, which is only a week from today. Kind of hard to believe how quickly this Lent seemed to go. I don't know if any of you have been focusing on anything for Lent, but I gave up meat. So I thought it would be torture, but it's actually gone pretty fast. So I guess that's good news as we work toward the end here. I hope that whatever it is you're doing this Lent season, whether you gave something up or you're just focusing more time in prayer or time in study, whatever it is, I hope it's been fruitful for you. But above all, I hope that you're ready for this coming week and what it means to firmly rooted, what it means to be part of this last week of Jesus' life study, which is just a remarkable thing that we do every year. Every year I go and I learn more things about it, and I feel like God continues to reveal new parts of this story through Tom each year as we dig back in again and hear it in a new way or hear it with the experiences we're having. So I not only encourage you men to be in that word, whether it's in person or online. It will all be live streamed. There's a book to go with it this year. It's really becoming this cool thing that we can be a part of. But I encourage you to be inviting people. This is one of those weeks where the church grows. And especially we see it at Firmly Rooted. We get lots of visitors. We have a lot of people who I know have come to just this study and don't even come regularly otherwise, or maybe they're watching online, but they come in person for this one. Please be invitational this weekend. Be encouraging people and just letting them know this is something, it's low impact. There's no expectations. It's not even church. For those of you who might have a bad experience with church, just come and see, come and hear, listen to it. Even if you do it just as a academic thing, it's a great experience. So anyway, there's my plug for this week at Firmly Rooted. I hope you all can be a part of it. So digging in into Mark 12, like I said, we're kind of heading toward, Jesus has ramped up his public ministry, certainly ramped up his public challenging of the leaders, the teachers, the Sadducees, the Pharisees. And now he's really getting, I want to say harsh with them. It's not harsh because he's confronting them with truth, but it sounds harsh, especially to the people in the community who are used to treating them with high regard, with all this respect and adoration and whatever it is. Although it seems to be that maybe the crowd sees through some of that stuff, right? The crowd reacts so well to Jesus challenging them, you can almost feel like there was a hunger for them to be challenged. A hunger at seeing what likely is hypocrisy. That's kind of what Jesus is pointing out here. And hypocrisy, for those of you who didn't happen to be theater majors in college, goes back to the old Greek theater days. And it was when an actor would play multiple roles in a play. And what they would do when they were in a play in those days, because the crowd couldn't necessarily all see, they didn't have amplification, they didn't have a way to amplify sound. So the actors would wear masks, and those masks would be painted basically with the emotion that actor was, right? They were smiling and happy, they were frowning, they were sad and crying, whatever it was. And so the wasn't Hippocrates, maybe it was. Anyway, whatever his Greek name was this actor known for playing many roles, and he would just switch the masks and hold a different mask up when he was doing this and that. And he'd be speaking all sides of his mouth, and that's actually where we get the expression two-faced from. wearing multiple masks, right? You're speaking one thing and then speaking another and saying different things that contradict each other and maybe living one way. So that's where we get the idea of hypocrisy. And that's directly, I think, where Jesus is going, at least with the second half of today's reading. The first part is he's in the temple courts and asks, why do teachers of the law say that the Messiah is the son of David? And David himself, speaking by the Holy Spirit, declared, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet. So this is an interesting question about the Messiah and who's the Messiah going to be, right? This was a big question of the day. Of course, everyone thought the Messiah was going to be this great warrior that came to defeat Rome, as Rome was seen as the enemy of the Jewish people at the time. And so there was all these expectations of his triumphal entry, all those ways that he was going to be coming, and just questions all the time. You can picture this, right? In this academic world where, they're all curious, they're asking questions, they're always asking, how are we going to know? What's he going to look like? What's he going to come and do, right? And so this question of how could he be a son of David and be the Lord at the same time? How can the son of David be the son of God? Of course, in hindsight, we know the answer to that is that Christ is both in the Davidic line of kings because he was born of Mary. Mary and Joseph, if you ever study the actual lineage, the 14 generations between David and Jesus, there's two different ways you track genealogy. And if you go down through Mary's line, you have the legal line that leads to Jesus. And if you go through Joseph's line, you have the familial line. And it's really an interesting study. You're not going to get into it anymore right now, but one of those ways that only God could make all this happen. But anyway, so Jesus being descended of the Davidic line, right? So his son of David, but also son of God, and he's kind of coming to prove that he is in fact both. But it's something that's hard to understand at the time, right? So he's asking this question to kind of challenge and get him thinking. How can this be? Because David calls him Lord, and certainly you would never call your son Lord. And so how could it be? Well, of course, Jesus is the only one who has the answer to that. As he taught, Jesus said, watch out for the teachers of the law. They will walk around in flowing robes and be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely. Oof. This is one of those that's hard to read, right? Mostly because we often tend to put ourselves in that seat and go, gosh, is that me? Do I, walk around wanting to be seen? Do I want to be respected at work? Do I want to be greeted because of my position, because of my authority? Do I take the most important seats, or am I making sure everyone else is seated first and I'll stand if I need to, right? Devouring widows' houses is an interesting phrase in itself that honestly I could do weeks of Bible study on based on the way we use financial products now. And this is a big part of what I teach, how we are devouring widows' houses by using credit cards and getting airline miles. And we know who's actually paying for that stuff, because it's certainly not the bank. It's certainly not the credit card company because they love you. It's the single mother who's desperate to get by and using credit cards to buy food and having to pay all the interest on it. And their interest is what pays for your credit card miles. So don't mean to go into that. There's a little preview of how we devour widows' houses today. Well, anyway, you know through Jesus' ministry that widows, orphans, the lost, those who aren't spoken for, those without a voice, the oppressed, there's a special place in God's heart for these people, right? They're the people we are designed to protect and to serve while we're here on earth and raise up. And here he's watching these people who are claiming to be religious, claiming to be people of God, who are devouring his widows, taking advantage of them, telling them that, if they give more of what they have, God will favor them, that it's because of their actions and their mistakes that they're not finding favor in this world, that life's not going well, and they're just abusing them over and over again. And this is part of what makes Jesus sick when he's in the temple and makes him turn the tables and all these things he's doing. Because, like I say, these are people who are elevated in God's eyes, and here people who are claiming to represent him are abusing them. for show they make lengthy prayers. I think about this every time I pray. You know, I'm often in a position to pray out loud or publicly or over people here at church, and boy, I'm always worried that lengthy might mean different things. I think what they're really pointing out is that you make it lengthy and just filling it with empty words rather than praying for what needs to be prayed for, or positioning a heart, or praying over the people's needs who you're praying for, right? Specifically. So my hope is I'm not making the kind of lengthy prayers he's judging against, but certainly when it's about show, God sees right through it. And I think this is one of the unique things about Firmly Rooted. I don't think the ministry is not one that's about show and authority. And I think probably a lot of us have been to churches that are about making a show. And I think the fact that this ministry is not run that way helps to attract people who are not that way. And I think that that's something we have that's unique here, is we're full of people who are real and genuine and on fire for God. And it makes such a difference in a ministry and what you're doing and who you're around, right? That the people are real, that we can respect and speak with each other. And so I can't sit here and see a lot of, I guess in a bad way, I can't see a lot of hypocrisy here at Firmly Rooted, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's a great thing. So we're not necessarily challenging it every day like Jesus would be. I think that there's a certain humility to the way we approach the cross and the way we approach each other in this walk that's so critically important. And I don't know, every once in a while I feel a check, right? I feel like, oh gosh, I'm looking for this admiration, or I'm looking for this position. And, I guess a lot of these are always cautionary tales, right? Anytime we're digging into the behavior of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, especially when we get close to Good Friday and close to Easter, these tend to be the readings that are going on. And it's this part of this process of Lent, right? We're going through and kind of checking ourselves against these standards. And man, I just want to encourage you. I know that all of you that I know, I can attest to the fact that you're not living a life that falls into this kind of judgment, which is a great thing. It's great to be around you. This, be a good conversation to have sometime for those of you who might be feeling condemned by these words, as we often can, right? This world and the enemy often tells us as we're studying that we're to be condemned. But I just think this is really an opportunity that paints a picture of who God really is, who he really came to serve, to exalt, and who's really doing his work. And of course, the next story we'll talk about is the widow's offering, which I think we'll get to on Monday, unless, of course, there's a different plan for the last week of Jesus' life. I'm not really positive, but a lot of great things to learn in that. So kind of ramble a little bit, but I hope this hits you in a good spot and kind of helps lift you up as you journey into this week. Well, so whatever it is you're doing, if you're traveling, whatever it is that you've got going on today, this weekend, again, I hope that you're spending some time not only in his word, but reflecting on what his word means, and reflecting on especially what's about to happen this next week, the biggest week in the church, the biggest week in our calendar. And again, an opportunity for us to invite people to come and see. I love you, man. Let's have a great weekend. Let's make today, Friday, a firmly rooted day. May someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.